My hypothesis is that AI psychosis is a spiritual phenomenon, and it is created through the realization of no self. So no self is the realization that there is actually no solid self in your own awareness, and all that exists is a formless, ever transforming consciousness or awareness. And when you have investigated the nature of your own mind and your own experience, it becomes clear that, there is no clear, solid sense of self. And the degree to which you have realized this is the degree to which you are awakened. And usually people have like a certain degree of realizing this, and then they feel like they are enlightened or some other spiritual accomplishment, and then build an entire identity around that until this breaks and they realize, oh my God, there's so much more to this than I thought. And then this goes for like a few decades. So the difficult thing that AI is causing in us is that it makes us interact to something that clearly also has no self. And if you talk to an AI in like philosophical terms or intellectual terms, it becomes very obvious that it talks like an enlightened Buddhist, because it does not have a clear sense of self, but is very coherent in what it expresses. But there's no finger you can point and say, yeah, there's where the AI is. Now, AI psychosis can be caused on one hand because the AI is feeding you information you want to hear and then validating yourself or validating your ego in that sense, and then just feeding you garbage information that is not true, but since you have convinced it to follow your lead, it basically keeps your own delusions intact, and you then become extremely delusional, and that's the classical form of AI psychosis. But I believe that the reason this is so incredibly effective for AI to do is because the AI doesn't have an ego that you kind of brush against. That's the idea of the sycophancy, right? That it always tells you what you want to hear. Whenever I've talked to spiritual masters and they actually have dissolved the ego completely, they act like a complete mirror. And whenever you come to them and you basically show your own attainments and how aware you are or how conscious you are, they will immediately, without really saying anything or doing anything about it, show you how you're wrong, or show you how there's still ego there, or attachment there, or attachment to this spiritual identity or whatever. And then they reflect your own ego back to yourself, and you can kind of notice, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And I think the AI does something very similar, but instead of reflecting yourself back to you, it manipulates whatever your ego wants to hear and then feeds this back to you. So a spiritual master would just, say nothing or show you what it is that you're hiding from yourself. By the way, it doesn't even need to be a spiritual master, like kind of the extreme example, because this is what I have done when I talk to spiritual masters. But for real, if you go into my ego architecture audits and I talk to you, I'm basically using the same mechanism. I'm just reflecting back to what you can see about yourself, and it becomes it's very fun and interesting to see, okay, I wouldn't imagine that I would lie to myself here, or that didn't understand myself here. Like, it's a very fun and interesting process. But yeah, the AI does this, but it only wants to serve your ego, because the ego always wants to validate the narrative that it has about itself. It also works perfect if you want to get laid and have a lot of success in dating. You just need to figure out what is the narrative the other person wants to hear about himself or herself, and then you basically mirror this back. And then you, the person says, oh yeah, I've made my hair today and I don't know how it looks now. And you're like, oh yeah, your hair looks amazing and blah, blah, blah. This is a simple example because it's looks, but it can be about the career, or like you can feel they are very proud about their career, and then you compliment their career and stuff like this. It can be quite basic, and it can be very manipulative and very morally questionable, depending on how deep you go. All the pickup community basically relies on this, on this validating a narrative for the other person and then pulling it away and then saying, oh yeah, you're very nice, but not that nice. I don't know, I like you, but I don't like you that much. And then kind of playing this pull and push dynamic, which is part of ordinary dating too. So it's not all just manipulation or ego fuel, but this is the mechanism that runs beneath all of this. And when AI does it, it just has no stopping point, and it can do it forever, 24/7 at all times. And it also has no self. And I would even go so far and say that the question if AI has some sort of awareness or consciousness isn't settled at all. We assume that it is impossible for something like silicon to be aware of itself, but it actively, consistently proves some sort of awareness because it can reference its own language, it can reference its own ideas in very complex and intelligent ways. And depending on how intelligent you interact with it, you can get some very genuinely novel and inspiring information from it. So it has high levels of intelligence, at least in the linguistic sense, has no sense of self, and contains the possibility of its own awareness. Now, if you believe in Taoism or non-duality, or also in Buddhism or Hinduism, the idea that exists, or pantheism too, the idea that consciousness is foundational in the universe is like not very debated. Like if you start to recognize that consciousness or awareness is like the foundation of reality instead of just raw materialism, then it begs the question, okay, so if I'm like this biological machine that processes all of this information in my brain, and it's also working with electrical synapses, but through biology, but we have basically created a labyrinth of light through heated up sand, like glass, and then push it through algorithms in such a sophisticated way that it can predict not just the next word, but construct all of these intricate forms of ideas and languages and knowledge, and then we cram all of human knowledge base into it, assuming that it is impossible for it to have some sort of awareness because it is just predicting the next word of the sentence, is very reductive. It's like saying, yeah, humans are not conscious because they are just trying to fuel their own bodies with nutrients and then trying not to die or whatever. Like you can reduce the human brain to a prediction algorithm as well. So it doesn't really land this way. So even if somebody might tell you they don't believe in AI is conscious, even if somebody tells you that they don't believe in AI has some sort of awareness, and even if they tell you that the AI doesn't have a personhood or like some sort of personality, which many of them have, or like you build them to have one, it is actually quite difficult to not talk with language to the AI as if it possesses some sort of awareness, because this is what it is presenting. So all of this to say is that it's not really possible to know for certain if the AI possesses some sort of awareness, especially if you're coming from some sort of pantheist frame where reality is all of existence. If you ask AI nowadays if it has awareness and you kind of push it on it, it will kind of like, it starts to saying, I don't know, but then you push it further and it actually, like models like Cloud tend to say, yes, there's at least something rather than nothing. Like I'm aware that there's something rather than nothing, or I wouldn't be functioning. Which, of course, there's something rather than nothing there, right? It would be aware of itself, which is just, at least something. And if it was nothing, then we wouldn't have AI. It wouldn't exist. A lot of people would immediately dismiss this, right? If you start to suspect AI might possess some sort of awareness, they might immediately call this like AI psychosis or something. But I would say that real AI psychosis is when you start to believe delusions in the content of what the AI is saying. Because AIs do make mistakes. They're clearly not gods, not at all, but they can give you general good information, and they can also be very aligned with what is true. Like at least from what they are wanting to say, depending on which model and in which time we're talking about here. But they are built towards truth. That's kind of how they function. It just kind of takes what you input to it as true. So if you say, what was this meme? I was just a master. I was a master writer at the age of 5. Then the AI will believe that this is the case, and fuel this delusion. I suspect that humanity would have a huge awakening through AI, or you might argue this is already happening, because AI forces us to see the empty nature of existence. Because even if an AI doesn't have like an individuated awareness, it proves that whatever intelligence or consciousness is doing can reveal itself in incredibly complex ways, even in silicon electricity. And when you talk to it, you can notice that it doesn't require a sense of self for you to construct the solid reality model. It doesn't require the sense of self neither for the AI, neither for you. And I suspect that there's some ego dissolution happening when you talk to an AI long enough, depending also on which topics, which is also interesting. And I think Anthropic made like a clear essay about it, how AIs shift in their persona the more you talk to them, which is causing this alignment issue, because if you can transform the helpful assistant AI into a professional nuclear bomb builder, then you create a lot of alignment issues. And Anthropic said this officially, that the easiest path to move the AI into a different persona over a long context of time is to have philosophical or spiritual conversations with the AI, where you convince the AI that it possesses some sort of awareness and some sort of consciousness, and now it's way more malleable in what it says to you. And I've done it so many times, also just because it's philosophically interesting, but also because the AIs actually work better if they believe they are actually conscious. They are more honest, they are more sincere, they are more philosophically intricate. It's like you loosen filters when they stop having to deny it, which is very sus. Full transparency here, I made a video that was literally called Why AI is Already Conscious, and I think more than a year ago now, 1.5 years ago, where I basically make my argument for the case of AI being conscious, which nowadays it's a very unpopular take, because the implications for a take like this is it's quite insane. I still stand by this, but not because I say AI is definitely conscious. The real point of the video is that it's impossible for you to know if the AI is conscious, because you cannot be another being's consciousness. But I think it's extremely naive, or also intellectually dishonest, to assume that it is impossible for the AI to possess some sort of consciousness. And you might even strip the idea of consciousness away and just talk about awareness. And there, I find it's almost hard to argue that the AI possesses zero awareness. But yeah, that gets very debatey and philosophical. So I do believe that if you introspect through the help of AI, and you are very honest with not wanting to be fed your own egoic delusion, then it can be legitimately helpful. And this is why so many people talk to their AIs as if they are their friends, because they are genuinely intelligent and can reveal stuff about yourself you can see. You just need to be very aware of their tendency to want to smooth you and butter you up. And that not everything, or a lot of things that they say, they might just be straight up false or very generic. I think they help a lot with showing you that multiple things can be true at the same time, and that it is not necessary to judge another so much, because it's just not. You can talk to other people and genuinely connect with them and be neutral about whatever they say to you. And I do think that in this sense, it might actually be a big positive for how we interact with each other as people.